mean on Wednesdays we read. I'm Hannah.
I'm Laura.
And we are two best friends who are doing a deep dive into a new book series, one book at a time. Right now we're ba-dum-bum in the Year of the Dresden.
The Year of the Dresden.
And we are finishing up the plot of White Knight, a book that I asked, will this be ending soon? Because it had about 5 million endings.
Don't know why I had to Google so many times how many chapters are in this book.
It was 43 because I kept counting.
So I listened to the audiobook on Hoopla, and for some reason, not all audiobooks give you like chapter breakdowns on Hoopla. I don't know why that is, but this one did not. And I was very disappointed. So I was constantly Googling how many chapters are in White Knight by Jim Butcher, because I was like, this has got to be close to over, right? 39.
Well, the thing is we're only covering less than we've covered the last 2 weeks, and there's more
so long.
plot in this section than in any of the
Some
other
of these
sections.
chapters were over an hour long.
It was wild to me how long this book went on for. I think we were at 61% by chapter 30, which is over half of the chapters. So like I don't know why we were like so limited by 5%, but man, he pushed a ton into that 5%.
It was dragging on forever. And it's also just so much vampires and so much fuegoing that I just want him to mix it up a little bit.
Yes. Well, he did mix it up. There was another spell. Do I remember it? No, I do not. But he did have a different spell.
But James Marsters has to yell fuegos so many times. I'm just annoyed.
I always think fuego, fuego, fuego.
You know what? You need to listen to the audiobook just to be annoyed by
James
Marsters. His yelling Dresden voice. Like every time he yells, I get annoyed because I'm like, stop it. This is annoying yelling.
Loud. Shh.
Just please stop. This is not a good yell. Ugh.
Laura, before we continue our conversation of Dresden, what are you reading, watching, and or enjoying?
Yes, I have been reading a lot of manga, honestly. I don't know if I talked about this last week, I'm not remembering, but I jumped back into Chainsaw Man by Tatsuki Fujimoto. So I had mentioned previously, I think it was last year, I had read the first volume of Chainsaw Man and was not a big fan of it because it was just, it seemed like the main character was like extremely immature and was just like, his main goal in life was to touch some boobs. And I was like,
remember that.
Okay, I mean, I get it, very immature kid, whatever. But I was just like, I'm not feeling this book. And so some people had recommended like keep going because the series gets deeper. And so I was like, you know what? I will give this a shot and I'll read 5 more volumes. And
that's a lot of volumes to give it another shot.
Well, I gave 4 more volumes, I guess, because I read through 5. So I had already read the first one and then I read 2 through 5.
Okay.
Because that was what was available to me on Libby. I cannot read farther than that now. But I will say that it does finally start to pick up by the 5th volume where I'm like actually interested in some of the other characters and actually can kind of see that there may be some, like, it's still not quite to the point where I'm like totally hooked and like anxious to read it, but I can see glimmers of hope where I'm like, if this was like readily available to me at my disposal, that I could just quickly filter through these volumes, I could see myself getting into a groove and being able to kind of push forward into the character development that I can see possibly happening. And there's also like a really interesting character that's kind of mysterious that honestly the book should be about her, but whatever. But I can see where people are saying that it does pick up. I might actually check out just the anime because actually Nicholas Eames, the author, recommended I check that out instead of the manga because he said that the anime is really great and the animation and is awesome. And I take that recommendation seriously, Nicholas Eames. I very much take that seriously. So yeah, read through volume 5 and that's all I have right now for that because Libby needs to get more volumes. Like, unfortunately, I feel like a lot of the graphic novel offerings through Northern Illinois libraries are fairly limited. Like occasionally you can get like a new volume, but if you're trying to
Yeah.
start a series, you're very limited where a lot of times it'll be like the first volume and then they'll do a burst where they'll offer like we have two more and then all of a sudden they'll be like we have the newest one, volume 26. And I'm like, okay, well that's great because I need to read volumes 6 through 25.
Have
So
you tried
wonderful.
Hoopla yet? Because I know Hoopla has a lot of comic options.
I have not because you're only allowed just like the 2 borrows per
That's
month.
true.
So it's fairly limiting. I've been using those to get Dresden books. So,
Ah,
because
fair enough.
I
Yeah, you
wanted
know
to
what?
make
You're
sure
right.
I had access to the Dresden books. And the Dresden books are wildly popular on Libby. So
Yeah.
I didn't want to have to wait and feel like I was waiting, and I thought Hoopla would be better for doing the Dresden books. So I haven't tried really to access any of these Chainsaw Man volumes via Hoopla yet, but I should look it up because
Yeah.
it might be an option. And it's also one of those things where it's like I around me, the libraries that I have physical access to do not have large manga collections. So my options are basically either to wait for Libby to get things, which I prefer to do because I don't like to get invested. I don't like to buy a bunch of volumes and then not like the series,
That's fair.
if that makes sense. So or at least I shouldn't say I don't like to. I don't want to buy a bunch of volumes and then not like the series, especially when there's a lot of them. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with that, where I'm like, I'd rather get them through the library in case this is a series that I decide later on down the line I'm going to drop off on or something if I
Yeah.
don't feel like it's picking up. But yeah, I think I can definitely see the potential in Chainsaw Man. There's a lot of action that occurs and everything, a lot of fighting scenes, and obviously like a lot of gore. These are demons that they're fighting, etc. A lot of manga involves fighting demons, but I can
No.
see a lot of like glimmers of potential for character development. So, and the art is really good too. So I will probably, if I can't wait any longer, I'll check out the anime just because it was recommended to me by Nicholas Eames, name drop. And yeah, I am looking forward to maybe seeing how this series progresses. And then another manga series that I have been continuing to read is One Punch Man. I'm through volume 12 now, and
You loved One Punch Man though,
I
so
really do enjoy One Punch Man. I think for me, they're all very like solid. It's not like these are like super enthralling novels or graphic novels, you know what I mean? Where I I like the volumes and I think they're solid 3 to 3.5s for me, like all of them, because they keep my attention. I'm giggling and I'm like, okay, I do want to keep coming back to them. It's not something where I'm like, should I keep reading this or etc. So I
hmm
have been enjoying that a lot. I will say in like the most recent one, we have Saitama, who is One Punch Man, who is somehow now involved in this like fighting ring, and I'm very much not interested in that. And there's all these like introductions of all these people that are like entering these fighting rings and how many like fights they've won and what their abilities are, and then we just like get a handful of pages on different people that I'm like, I don't care to know all these additional characters. I want to just kind of get back to Saitama and his apprentice Genos and them working through the Hero Association. I'm much more interested in that and find that a lot funnier. But yeah, I think that One Punch Man is one of those that it's popular for a reason. It may be a little overhyped because I see a lot of people, manga in general, I think is a little overhyped because I see a lot of the ratings that people have for these and they're very high. And I think maybe we need to dial them back a little more. I'm not
hmm
totally sure. Maybe it's because the art really influences people. I'm not totally sure. But I feel like One Punch Man is solid, but maybe a little overhyped. And yeah,
Got
that's
it.
where I'm at with that. But then I also have listened to some Stephen Graham Jones. I listened to The
Oh,
Babysitter Lives, and I
ooh, I
really
haven't
liked
read
that
that one
one.
yet. I'll have to look it up. I haven't read that
So
one.
this is one of his older ones, I think, and
Mm,
I listened to that one and Killer on the Road
okay.
back to back, and they were both really solid. I think I liked The Babysitter Lives a little bit more though, just because it had a little more of like the creep factor that
Mm,
I kind of get into a little more, which is like more of like a mystery surrounding a place or a house, and that's what
Right.
was happening in this. And I mean, it does kind of the book does kind of follow some tropes that you would maybe expect when it's regarding a babysitter and some creepy kids. So, yeah, but I think that Jones just really does a great job kind of allowing readers to get into the fear and the mindset of the characters, the main character. And we always have like that final girl situation. I think that he does a really good job at the final girl trope and
Yeah.
kind of like spinning it on its head and making it more interesting and kind of going a little bit further. Like we have this line and he likes to cross it. And I like that.
Yes.
I think it's a good way to push the boundary. So I think that The Babysitter Lives was it does have tropes, but I think it really improves upon the tropes, if that makes sense.
Well, that's good.
So yeah, that was a really solid one. And Killer on the Road, that was a solid one too. It's very much more of like it was a story surrounding a girl who fled her hometown and her friends go and catch up with her and then they're pursued on the road by this mysterious figure who is also able to like kind of I don't want to spoil too much, but they're pursued on the road by this mysterious figure that is killing people. So yeah. But now that I'm like thinking about it, there's a very there I get why the tie is between these two books. So I'm not going to say any more about why these two books are being marketed together. So I'll just leave it at that. But yeah, and then I have been watching Taskmaster, lots of
Mm.
Taskmaster. Went,
Dude, someone said that us talking about this makes them want to watch Taskmaster,
I
so
mean, they
we
should.
gotta rewatch it. They'd already watched it all. They said you guys just make me want to rewatch it because we both kept talking about it.
I
So
mean, you can do it
you're
because
welcome.
I've noticed that I've been keeping up like a pretty steady pace, just moving through the seasons. I'm in season 12 now. So I've
Mhm.
watched all of season 11. I'm in season 12. And I've been going back to seasons that I've already watched so that my husband can watch some of the episodes because I've been going at a pace that he is not keeping up with because we're not home at the same times. And he really enjoys James Acaster a lot. So
Okay.
yeah, we watched the episode where he was making all the circles, and then all of a sudden he lands in a circle, and then uh, Greg like says to him, "Okay, explain yourself," and he's like, "My eyes are circles." It, like is one of the funniest things ever because usually he's able to just have these really quick one-liners and is so serious and has an explanation for everything, even if it's absolutely
Right.
bizarre. He
Yeah.
has an he absolutely has an explanation for it, but that was one of those tasks. He couldn't even talk himself out of that weird situation that he had
Yeah.
created. He was just making circles. He didn't realize it was to actually create a large circle that could be measured. So that was so funny. But my husband and I have also been watching Leanne, and that is, I was picturing this as being like a Reba like show, and I was not super interested because admittedly, I struggle with Southern accents. Like, I just, like Reba's accent, I struggle with a little bit. I'm so sorry, listeners who have Southern accents. I just struggle with Reba's accent specifically. And Leanne Morgan also has a very thick accent. However, I listen, and my aunt was like, after me, like, you need to watch some of Leanne's specials and we should watch Leanne the show. And I was like, I don't know if I can do it. I struggle with Reba. And so
I
then,
honestly know zero about this show, so
so Leanne Morgan is a stand-up comedian and
okay.
she was offered a show by the creator of Two and a Half Men, I believe.
Oh yeah,
And
Chuck
it's on
Lorre.
Netflix and it's one of those like multicam ha 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 laugh track in the background shows. And it's about a woman, Leanne, whose husband cheats on her and they end up getting divorced. And so she's kind of navigating life post her long-term relationship with her husband. And so the whole reason I started watching the show, honestly, is because I was listening to Amy Poehler's podcast, Good Hang, and Leanne was the guest that week. And, I like to support new startups like indie podcasts like Amy Poehler.
Yeah, she's really just getting in on the
Yeah,
ground.
I'm trying to support people who are getting in there, who are trying new things
Not
and
as
need
well established as we are.
yeah, need a boost, need the downloads, people that need support. So I'm trying to support her by listening, and I listened to her podcast with Leanne, and I really enjoyed it. I thought Leanne was funny, and so I thought, you know what, I'll just try watching the show. The show is also pretty funny. So I have been watching that with my husband, and we have been getting some laughs out of that. And it was one that we started watching when like everything was going down in terms of news, and it was kind of the perfect like escape from
Yeah.
like thinking about everything, that it was like, okay, we'll just watch this woman with this really thick accent who is navigating all of these things happening in her life and loves her adult children and her sisters so much, but also really struggles with all of them and has a like hilarious relationship with her sister. So we've been watching that, but lots of Taskmaster, honestly, because my brain has been really struggling with TV in general lately. So yeah, it's been lots of Taskmaster just because those seem less TV-ish and more bite size that I don't have to really feel as invested in. So, Hannah,
Yeah.
what have you been reading, watching, and or enjoying?
So for reading, I feel like I've been such a failure this year about reading because I just feel like my reading's way down, but I'm also trying to let myself be okay with that and being like, well, you
Well,
played.
you've been working a lot on reading for your editing group too, so.
Yes, I read 30, at least 45 pages some weeks of
Hmm.
editing stuff, and I'm
Hmm.
behind a week. So, um, and I also play like 12 hours of Silk Song, so just so many things to do in a
Got
week.
it.
So I've been mostly leaning on audiobooks, as everyone knows, but I re-listened. Well, I listened the first time I read it, the second
Hmm.
time I listened to it, A Psalm for the Wild Built by Becky Chambers,
Hmm.
because it's delightful and it made me feel happy. And like Laura said, it just kind of lets you escape from the world and
Yeah.
just not have to think for a while. And I loved that. It's so sweet to read a book. Like I think Monk and Robot series, I want to read A Prayer for the Crown Shy, and that's also why I reread the first one as well as
Oh,
Gideon
you
the
haven't read the
Ninth.
second one yet.
I haven't read the second
Okay.
one yet. So I really wanted to read Harrow the Ninth and A Prayer for the Crown Shy.
Hmm.
Um, and I was like, well, I read those like a year to 2 years ago. I'm not sure I
Hmm.
remember all the details. And so I re-listened to both, and I just really enjoy that book. I think there's something unique about Becky Chambers and creating this world where
Hmm.
people respected robots' autonomy.
Sure.
That in the world of AI makes, me a little sad about like
Yeah.
what we do to our world because the Monk and Robot series, a huge part of it is going back to nature and making sure that like the robots became sentient and then they wanted to leave. And so humans learned and then tried to make sustainable materials that wouldn't
Hmm.
have those types of thoughts or have those types of things like holding them down. And I really think that that's beautiful. And I wish our world thought like that because I think
Yeah.
we make really, really short sighted choices. So,
I will say that having read the first two books in her Wayfarer series, she very much likes to lean on themes of like community and why certain scientific choices have been made and why, like, what our role is in the planet and existing amongst one another and what we kind of like owe to one another, if that makes
yeah.
sense. So, so I do think that she does a great job of not only having these, like, I know everybody just kind of is like, oh, cozy and heartwarming and everything.
Hmm.
I totally agree, but I do think there's a lot deeper themes that exist within all of her books when it comes
Yeah.
to just like kind of contemplating like our purpose in the world and what we are allowing ourselves to do in terms of being stewards of the
Yeah.
planets that we are on. So,
Yeah.
and
I heartily
caring for
agree.
nature.
So. And then I also Laura reads a lot of manga,
Hmm.
but Hannah, when she delves into the comic scene, is usually doing graphic novels. So I read Welcome to St. Hell, My Trans Teen Misadventure by Lewis Hancox. This is a memoir in graphic novel form where he revisits coming out as trans throughout
Okay.
his high school and like early like quote unquote uni days, where
Hmm.
it's just like different types of things because he's over in Europe. And he became trans during a time where people didn't even know what transgender meant. And so he just
Okay.
felt like he was different and he didn't know what it was. And then he was randomly talking to his art teacher, and the art teacher was like, "You're really flunking my class. Like, you don't have focus." And like, this is in the
Mm.
comics. And he's like, "I've been really thinking about the fact that I think I might be a boy." And the art teacher was like, "Okay, well, like, why don't you put your trans experience into your artwork?" And he was like,
Yeah.
"Okay." And then it showed him going home and Googling, "What does trans mean?" And like, that was how he figured it out. And it was beautiful. I ended up crying a lot during this book because it was
Oh.
just so beautiful. Just like,
I actually love graphic novels like that like are memoirs because you do have those glimmers of like really funny things happening where it's like now I have to go home. It like shows me Googling this or it's
yeah.
like I'm sitting in the bathroom right now.
Well, it's really
Was
funny
this
because
scene necessary? But yes, it is.
well, and he like has moments where he's talking to himself before he
Hmm.
transitions and things like that. And he also talks about his parents and like sometimes they're not shown in the best light, so he has them kind
Sure.
of break the fourth wall where the dad's like, "I'm not coming across as great in this." And the mom's like, "Look at me, I'm in a bathrobe." And so it was very enjoyable and very cute and like it kind of talks about conversations he had with his parents when he
Sure.
came out and conversations he had with his close friends because one of his friends, like, he tries to come out and she's not very understanding. And, like,
Sure.
then it, like, flashes forward to years later where they're both, like, explaining where she was like, "Look, I was grieving a relationship ending. I was doing all these things, and you just didn't seem to
Mhm.
notice because you were so hung up on what you were going
Yeah.
through, and I was just hurt by it." I was like, oh, there are still like friendships are so complex and I really
Yeah.
liked seeing it. And it was really cute because there was like such a nothing moment where he comes like this is small spoilers if you want the full experience, skip ahead, but it shows him coming out to his grandparents and the grandparents are like, "Great, love it." And like and he was like, "Well, Grandpa, do you have anything to say to grandparents who don't support their grandchildren?" And he was like, "Yeah, they can fuck right off."
Oh,
It was really sweet and like I don't know, I just really enjoyed that one. So I bought this a while ago and I was really glad that I finally got around to reading it.
good.
Um and then Shauna McGuire, I've been listening to all of
Hmm.
her books. And so I listened to the second one. This is my third one, Down Among the Sticks and Bones.
Hmm.
This one follows two characters from the previous novel, Jack and Jill, twins who found a door into like a mad scientisty world with a vampire. Uh,
Okay.
and all about their experience as twins because like a huge part of their identity is when they were growing up their parents very much wanted a boy and a girl, so they decided to treat one like a tomboy and one like a little girl. And
Okay.
when they go into this other world they kind of swap roles, and it's very
Interesting.
interesting to see how it like affects them, um and how they both feel very much like isolated from one another growing up because they both
Hmm.
had these very specific identities and how it affected them in like maintaining closeness and things like that. And Shauna McGuire does so much with so little. She really packs a punch. So,
I feel like
um,
novella writers specifically, if this is like an author that pumps out a lot of novellas, usually they know what they're doing.
yeah.
Like they like that format, they like short form, and they do not waste time and they often pack punches.
Well, it's also interesting because like it's a horror novel, and I think sometimes horror delves into like
Hmm.
very tricky relationships. Like, what if you genuinely love your sibling but you don't like them or you don't
Sure.
trust them? Like, I think that that's a very interesting, unique way to look at it. That like many books do sort of look at that, but this one is just like it's scarier.
Hmm.
So it's
Hmm.
interesting to kind of have that playing out. Um, and then for watching, I haven't watched as much Taskmaster. I've been watching the screen as I play Silk Song. And then Lori and I are trying to figure out what to cover for TV in September. And I suggested The Hunting Wives, and I
Hmm.
watched 2 episodes. And Laura, I changed my mind. I don't think we should cover
Okay.
it.
Well, that's good to know because I was going to start watching tonight and now I will not.
It's wild. So like
Okay.
this is a thriller,
Wild
which is
good or wild awful?
I don't know. I don't really like it. Like I think
That's enough.
it's
I don't need any more explanation, I guess, to
yeah,
not
but I
watch
mean
it.
I'm gonna explain it to the people
Yeah, I
of the
mean,
listeners.
for
But
the
like
content for here, absolutely,
yes,
but
but like
I
Laura's
don't need
done.
to be convinced.
We can just watch a documentary. Just pick one and we'll watch it and
Okay.
we'll talk about it. we could do something else. Um, Laura, well, like lots of people are talking about it on TikTok, and sometimes Laura and I
Mm,
will just pick something random. And I was like, lots of people are talking about the hunting wives. It looks a little stupid, not in a bad way, because
sure.
all media, I think female content and male content, sometimes female bad content is like,
Hmm.
this is trash and this is terrible. I'm not
Right.
saying that, but this isn't a good show. The
Hmm.
wigs are wigging. And it's technically a thriller, which also puts it on Laura's chopping block because you're not a
Yeah,
fan of
not a fan
thrillers.
of thrillers.
And this one is just, I don't know. I'm 2 episodes in. The entire premise is someone got shot at the beginning of the season in a mystery where you don't know if it happened before or after. I don't know. I wasn't paying that close of attention. And then we meet Sophie, played by Brittany Murphy, who moved from Boston with her gobshite husband, whose name I think is Joel. And
Okay.
he is an architect who's building a bank for this rich man who's going to run for governor. And throughout the first episode, she meets Malin Ackerman, who is this man's wife. And immediately in the first episode, within 30 seconds of them meeting, she walks into Malin Ackerman's bathroom, which you would think would have the things that she needs in her own bathroom. And she's
Hmm.
like, honey, do you have a pad? And she goes, no, I have a tampon. And she goes, I can't use one of those. And she's like, well, desperate times. And then she rips off her dress and like puts like I think she puts toilet paper down there. And that's how they meet, which is wild. Like you just see Malin Ackerman's
Interesting.
boobs within the first 3 minutes, which again, I'm not knocking. They're great boobs, but like
Okay.
it's a wild start. And then Brittany Murphy is playing, or is
I
it
feel like this is how thrillers
Brittany's?
roll, though, where I hate it, where they're like, we have to make this woman interesting. You know how we make her interesting? She is going to use toilet paper instead of a pad
Right.
and
Well, and
show
I'm
her
sorry, I
boobs.
meant Brittany Snow. Brittany Murphy is, in fact, deceased. But Brittany Snow is playing the most boring, basic woman who, like, they're like, she has a shocking past. She probably has a drinking problem and she got sober
Mm,
because because she like this heavy spoilers for the first 2 episodes, so
okay.
sorry. She got
Yeah.
into a car accident while she was drunk driving and someone died over it, and so she hasn't had a drop to drink for 2 years. Within the first 2 episodes there are this married couple badgering her into drinking whiskey, which is really weird to watch because you don't actually know, is she an alcoholic or did she have like bad life choices. There are differences and people abuse alcohol in different ways, but wild thought. Um, you find out that this couple, like, it's very much old school conservative. Like, Dermot Mulrooney is the one who's playing the governor running man.
Okay.
And he immediately comes out and has all these dog whistles to say he's thinking about running for governor because you got to lock down the border and all this shit. And it's just like, it's stuff. And then you find out that he and Malin Ackerman are like having sex with other people, but at one point Brittany Snow is like, "Oh, so you have an open marriage?" And she's like, "Honey, that's for Democrats." And it's and it's
What?
one of those things that like I sometimes think we have a certain belief that like everyone has messy lives. That is a universal
Hmm.
truth. But sometimes it's like, well, we all have the same messy lives. And conservatives are definitely doing this too. They just would never call it an open marriage because that's what Democrats call it. And it's like, no, it just seems like
Mm,
you two are weird people who don't want to admit you're in an open marriage. Like,
right.
that's weird. And like, Malin Ackerman is supposed to have this like very shady past where she has to give her brother money to like stay out of the woodwork, and she's having sex with everyone. Like
Hmm.
that, she one of her best friends is in love with her because they're having
Let me just stop
sex.
you real quick to ask a question. This is just 2 episodes?
This is just 2 episodes
My God.
because she has to go around breaking up with all the people she's having sex with because her husband's about to run for governor, and
Oh,
then
MG.
he's propositioning Brittany Snow, and it's supposed to be like she's not going to cheat on her husband, but her husband is saying like awful, offensive things where it's like you two should have gotten divorced a while ago. Like it's just really weird hoops to jump through to be like,
Yeah.
well, this is why Brittany Snow is attracted to Malin Ackerman. And like the thing that really tipped it over for like A, I wasn't having fun. B, I didn't think Laura would have fun because it's a thriller and it's not very fun. It's the sea of like, you and I both were in a farming sorority, and
Hmm.
there are
Hmm.
certain things that I think I know from being in a farming sorority as a non-farmer girl that like people didn't enjoy. And one
Sure.
of those is like Brittany Snow walks into a shop and gets brand new cowboy boots to have the cowgirl aesthetic. And that was the moment where I was like, Laura will not enjoy the show and I'm not going to make her
No.
watch it. Like, because it's just like I remember the girls at our sorority were often like, "Who buys cowboy boots if you're not going to like utilize like you can have fancy
Yeah.
ones, but you should also be utilizing cowboy boots if you're going to own them." And
It's one of those things like I honestly like have a little bit of like whiplash over I shouldn't say whiplash. I get a little bit of cringe when I see people like have embraced Carhartt so
yeah,
widely as fashion gear and I'm like, really? Because I use that to go out and feed my goats in the negative weather because I need to stay warm.
right, exactly. So it just wasn't very fun. And I didn't really care about the mystery.
Hmm.
Like Brittany Snow's being followed around by a one-eyed man. It's just so wild.
This
And like
sounds quite
and it also
weird.
has my least favorite things, which is like a 17-year-old boy who doesn't look like a 17-year-old boy having sex with an adult. Like I'm over that as
Oh.
a storyline. Like I just don't care anymore.
Hmm.
As long if they don't look like a child, it's just
Yeah.
titillation, which I think is irresponsible. Um I think the biggest, weirdest like highlights were the Reverend's wife who's obsessed with her son and is like so mad that he's screwing everyone around
Hmm.
him. Um, there's a scene where Brittany Snow catches her having sex with him, Malin Ackerman, and they just look at each other like, "Aren't you turned on right now?" And I'm like, I would be jumping so far out of my skin. And it's the second time someone walks in on someone doing like absolute like ooh, and they just sit there watching them because there's a
Hmm.
horrifying moment in the first episode where the Reverend's son is about to have sex with his girlfriend. She stops him because they've only had sex once before and she regretted it. And then she starts praying for them to have like the power to withhold. And she's praying so hard with her eyes so closed. She doesn't notice that he's still masturbating on the bed.
Oh my gosh.
That's insane. That's insane. That's insane, Laura. I can't like, and I was like, this is just like if
Do
she
her ears
opened
not work?
right. And I'm like, if she opened her, and then Malin Ackerman like comes in and starts watching him do it, and I'm like, what's happening?
What?
Like, this is wild. I don't understand. I didn't like it, and it's not even like a
And this
fun
is
like
2 episodes.
this is 2 episodes, and they're 50 minutes long, and they feel like the longest thing of my
Ugh.
life. So like, I don't know. It's really weird because it's obviously supposed to be like those conservatives. They're really repressed, and I'm like, well, conservatives are repressed about a lot of stuff, but like, sex behind closed doors is usually not one of them, or if it is,
Right,
it's like
right,
a lot. It is darker, but it's not funny. Ha ha! It's dark. Like it's
right.
just, and so. Yeah, I don't know. And I think they're like setting it up for like, well, Brittany Snow's husband's a Democrat, but he's just as bad. And I was like, I just don't know what's happening here, you know?
Yeah, that seems like a show that I will not be watching. So thank you for the non-recommendation.
Yeah, Laura, you should.
Might I make a
Yeah,
recommendation?
sure.
So I have two actually. So the first one is one that I saw getting some Emmys buzz, and that is Somebody Somewhere.
Okay. Oh, I've heard of that one. Yeah, they had an Emmy winner who had the best speech. He was
Yeah.
so
And
sweet. I
everyone
loved
was
him.
so happy for him to like all of
Yeah.
the other people that were nominated were like screaming that he won. So
Yes.
I was interested in that show. And then another one I have already watched it, but you might find it interesting is Undone, and that's like an animated like
Hmm.
psychological TV series on Prime.
Okay. I mean, it has 16 episodes, which is a lot for us to watch
We could just do one
before the
season though if you
30th.
wanted to just do
Yeah.
the first season. It's only
Why
eight
don't I watch the
episodes.
first season and you guys
Or we
join
could
us
watch the
next?
first season of Somebody Somewhere.
Why don't
That-
we? Well, we'll talk about it off mic, but join us
So
next
these
week
are the
as we
two options
cover
for, yeah.
a surprise show of Somebody Somewhere or Undone. We will be
Yes.
covering one of them next week, guys.
These are my
Uh,
suggestions. So,
but with that said, now that they know that we will not be covering the
and
hunting
I'm sorry
one.
that TV Tuesday didn't get out right away because that was totally on me for not being able to wrap my brain around TV. But
No, you're told I mean, we could
we
just do
still have next week and we will get it out, listeners.
hey, we could just do an episode of Taskmaster
That is
review. Like,
also possible.
it is one of the three, guys. It depends. It depends. Uh, but shall we dive in to the most plot-heavy section
I
of
mean,
the
I don't want to,
Dresden
but I guess we
File?
have to. I would rather just
It's
like keep tossing out TV Tuesday suggestions, but I guess we'll just get into what we're here for. Like, how dare we?
so in the last section, and this is going to be shocking to you all the way back to chapter 31, Laura. Elaine had been kidnapped. We've both read 14 more chapters, and it's shocking that that's where we're at right now. But he talks about how he can sense her better than other people because of their past together.
Well, because they were each other's first
First,
lover.
everything. And he has like a weird
And
thing
I
where
am
he's like,
bothered by his flashbacks that he has where he's like, I was the first one to see her young body naked. And I'm like, please stop. That is your
like,
sister.
and it's just weird to be like, you know what I think about? Her spell. Like, it's just
Like,
like, what's happening?
gosh. And he knows her true name, which I was expecting to be like extremely long and unnecessary like his, but it's literally just Elaine Lillian something. I was like, okay, well, boring.
You noticed that part. I didn't. He starts thinking about how special she is to him. He also starts thinking about who she is as a person and how her life is. He
Here's the thing,
starts.
though. He thinks about this now. When we get about 3 more hours into the book, he has completely forgotten. And he is well within the arms of another beautiful boobed woman.
Well, because he doesn't actually care that much about Elaine anymore, he's still thinking about Susan. Like, apparently. I don't know. It's so
And
confusing.
Murphy
And
and
Murphy and all the other women
Laura.
that he's in love with. Lara. But he starts sensing her and he finds her amidst an attack in her psyche, and he can like
Mhm.
hear the words coming in at her.
And this is where Marsters is yelling, like,
Oh, good.
million, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, shut up. Do
Well, like
not yell that in my ears anymore.
the bad voice is telling her how she couldn't save people and how she's useless.
Mhm.
And Harry starts being like, Elaine, Elaine, that is just a voice inside your head. And she's like,
Oh no, he yells it. He's like, you're
Harry?
under attack, a psychic
Oh.
attack.
um, and Harry realizes as he's talking, like, it's the Scavis who's changing their voice to sound like Elaine's, which is a
So
lot of subterfuge if you think about it. Of like,
apparently the Scavis can get into their brains even and like change their thoughts and like make them feel all these terrible things and then kind of like feed upon that immense depression that they ensue upon
yes,
people.
which man, would they have a lot to play with me. So,
I was gonna say,
uh,
are they around right now? Is that happening?
is it happening to be Laura? Laura!
Dresden, wake me up!
Dresden, wake me up. Uh, And so Harry does end up getting through to her, and he and Murphy arrive in the nick of time. She gets broken out of her trance, and she uses a wand to like beat up the Scavis, like explodes
Hmm.
everything immediately when they're on arrival. And of course, like the Scavis gets thrown against a wall, it gets up, and its chest is bare because it's
Yeah.
dressed as a woman, so the boobs have to come out, but this
Yeah.
time the boobs are falsies, so
I
it's
was gonna say
different.
they're falsies that are falling out. That
And
has to
it's
be
like,
mentioned.
I'm just like, why are women's clothing getting ripped off so often in these books? It shouldn't happen this much. Um,
How often is Harry's clothing ripped off? It's not near as often as we're seeing Murphy have to remove her pants
no,
to move
right.
through some kind of area or like
Well,
bras
and
getting ripped
Elaine's
off or
like
women
coming
being
out of the
naked.
bathtub. Like it's just
Yeah.
it's all
Well,
naked
and that's
women.
sad too because it's one of those things where she's been put into that whole state by the Scavis that she is then in the bathtub that she has committed self-harm and like
Yes.
ugh.
Well, and Elaine is like frustrated with this because she points out she's like every time I come to Chicago, I have to get saved, and
Hmm.
I
Because she wakes up in Dresden's arms, which is the worst.
Well, I said this is Butcher's way of pointing out that Harry Dresden always has to be the hero. Like
Yes.
she can't. She
I think he
enters.
says it later, honestly.
She enters into a Dresden book and it's like, you are damsels, ma'am. Did you know
Hmm.
that?
Yep.
But and like you said, there was self-harm, and she's
Hmm.
losing a lot of blood, so they have to get her to a hospital.
Hmm.
But she also wants others to be safe. And then the Scavis goes to attack them all. But Thomas comes in because it can't be a woman. And he ends up chopping off the Scavis's arm before Murphy or the dog or Harry could get to it. The Scavis is screaming in agony. Harry and Thomas have a little bit of quippy nonsense where Thomas admits that his sister has sworn him to secrecy because
Hmm.
she said Justine is in danger and he needs to help her in order to get Justine help. And Harry
He's
points
like,
out,
I don't know what you're talking about. Like,
and
okay, we
Harry
get it.
is
You've been
like,
sworn to silence by Laura. Like,
you know, the Madrigal and Malvora are still out and about. Vito Malvora.
hmm.
And
He's
Harry
like, if they're
asks,
having a meeting, it might not be tomorrow. Like,
yeah,
okay.
and he asks if there's a meeting coming up, and Thomas says that he can't tell them that because he's sworn to secrecy, which means there has to be a meeting
Yes.
because if there wasn't, he could say no. And then he's like, wink, wink, wink. And he notes that his sister has guts and that Harry has some word. And Harry's like, ah, well, I have some words for her. Ha 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 ha. And then he smiles. And then we cut on over to the most important part because it's not about quippy nonsense. It's about Elaine being saved from certain death. And Harry is in the hospital waiting to hear how she's doing, or he
Hmm.
already heard about it by the time we come into him.
Yeah.
But
Hmm.
he's there with Mouse, and like a security guard comes to ask him to leave.
This
And then
is another thing that annoys me too, where he always has to like do these weird like alpha male flexes where I'm like, just okay, shut up. You're not supposed to have dogs in places. It's well within his right to be like, that dog is not safe in a place where people have open wounds. Okay.
also, as someone who works in HR and now I have to look through and analyze like service dogs or an emotional support
Hmm.
animal, like let's all be realistic, guys. Like
Here's the
it's
thing though, this
rude.
is a hellhound with sonic barks.
I
It's
know.
definitely not something that should be allowed there.
That security guard isn't getting paid enough to hear Harry
No.
Dresden joking. Like, I'm on the side of the security guard in this
Same.
situation. Like, it's just so rude. I was not impressed by this. I hate the early 2000s where that was seen as funny, where it's
My
like,
note
let's be
says
mean to
eye roll.
wait staff. Like, where it's like, let's be mean to someone whose job is barely paying them a living
Hmm.
wage. Let's not. We could just
Hmm.
not. And so Murphy comes and she's like, it's actually his service animal. He's ridiculous. And then they sit down and they chit chat. Murph says she wants to talk to him about what happened with Molly from the chapters before, where
Yeah,
Harry
because he
said
like
he's not
screams
Yoda.
at her.
And Harry points out that he does have to scare Molly because magic works in a way where if you believe in it, it works for you.
No, he basically says like Molly is out of control and I have to do this to scare her because she always thinks she's doing the right thing. But I'm the one who's always doing the right thing and only I can be out of control. And she's like, you're out of control. And he's like, I am?
It's so dumb because he's sitting there being like, well, I have to scare her because she knows she can mind control now. So she might mind control because she believes she can. And Murph is like, hey, you've become really angry in the past couple of years.
Yeah,
And he's like,
okay, Lashiel. Like,
I've always been angry. I'm the Hulk. And she's like, no, now
no,
it's different. It's different because
no, it's a fallen
there's a
angel inside of
fallen
you.
angel inside of you. And he doesn't really want to believe her at first, but then he starts thinking about it. He realizes, and he
Also, they share
realizes
a Coke and
like,
a smile. I needed to bring that up.
oh, you did it. um,
I just thought that was so funny. I was like, they're literally sharing a Coke and a smile. Did he get some kind of sponsorship from Coke?
well, and then he realizes that like a lot of stuff he's doing puts people in danger because she's like, "Hey, you keep releasing energy in this book and this book
Hmm.
only." But like you don't think about the fact that it could have ramifications. Like you've done it near buildings where people are, you're putting them at risk. Like you just told me that you have to be careful with Molly because she
Yeah,
believes what she's doing is right when she mind controls, but you believe when you release energy that you're
right.
doing. So do you realize the hypocrisy, Harry? And it's like, I barely realize the
I mean,
hypocrisy. It's a long
he
walk to a short
never
answer.
realizes when he's a hypocrite. So
He
obviously
does
no.
he does realize he has to change. Then out of nowhere, we
She
get a
also
call.
questions us. She's like, "Are you really jealous of Elaine because she's super powerful?" And he's kind of like, "Yeah, I'm obviously jealous, but no, I'm not because we're lovers." And it's like, this is incredibly awkward.
It's so weird. Then out of nowhere, he gets a call from Marconi. Apparently, off
Hmm.
page, they spoke to one another, and Marconi is like, "All right,
He's like,
I'll
beg
help
me.
you, but you have to say pretty, pretty please." And we do know that a lawyer of some kind is involved.
Hmm.
Then Harry hangs up the phone. He's talking to Murph about the White Court, how in taking out Scavis, they kind of played right into the other two White Court vampires' hands because that's
Hmm.
why they got Dresden and involved. So they have to figure a way to take them out or to help get the White Court involved with the Red War, the Cold War, and with the
Hmm.
Red Court
Hmm.
vampires. If they don't, the world as we know it ceases to exist. It could last zero, it could be 0 years, it could be 10, similar to where we are today.
Yeah.
He tells Murph that he does have a plan, and he's actually really glad that Elaine is not there to witness it because, of
Hmm.
course, she was already damseled. Then I say Harry talks to his imaginary friend in his apartment.
Here's where I things get a little murky for me because he like acknowledges that Lashiel is not Lashiel, that it's like a figment of his imagination, but sometimes it is not. And like Lashiel's like asking him about Molly, and I'm like, is he talking to himself or is he actually talking to this fallen angel apparition? I'm unsure what's happening here. If he's
So
like
I
having
actually
conversations within his own mind, like him with his conscience, or what?
no, so it is so when Harry touched the coin, a
Yes.
piece of Lashiel, like a projection of her, was put
Hmm.
into him to tempt him. But the actual angel itself is in the coin. This is just kind of like a piece of her, like kind of like how it's just
Okay,
a
I,
part
I
of
feel
your
like
brain,
I'm
not the whole
understanding that, but
part.
at the same time, it's confusing because when he's talking about it, he's like, I know that this isn't her and it's just me talking to myself. And I'm like, is it?
Well, it's because it's all in his head. Like there's no one standing there, but it feels real to him. It's like how he
So it
talks about
is
like
indeed the figment or like the piece of that.
it's the piece of that, but it's all taking place inside his head. It just like it's like he's hallucinating. Like
Okay.
she's not actually standing in front of him. She's inside his head and it's she's just a hallucination that's being projected into the
Okay.
room. But if someone walked in, he would look like he was talking to himself. It's
Okay.
kind of
I guess I
like
was like getting confused by the way that it's described, if it was like the situation you just explained, or if it was like literally him just thinking that he's imagining Lashiel, but it's actually just him talking to Harry Dresden Conscience.
I mean, I think if someone was walking in, he would just look like he was talking to himself, and that's what he's talking about, where it's all just in his head. Kind of like how in books before
I
he's
know.
like,
I
it
think we're
feels like it's
saying
hot
different
water.
things. I like.
Okay.
I'm getting what you're saying, but I think what I was also thinking is like, uh, I'm doing a bad job of explaining it. Where I feel like when he's talking about it, it's almost like not the situation where like Lashiel is even there. Like he's
Oh, yeah.
picturing Lashiel, but it's not. Like he thinks he's imagining Lashiel. You know what I
Mm,
mean?
yeah. I don't
But
think
it's
that's
actually
happening.
him, Dresden. That's where it was getting so confusing to me. Where I'm like, don't say it like that because now I'm questioning everything.
Laura's sitting there like, don't say it like that.
A
But
lot of anger in this last section.
I don't blame
I'm
you.
raging out like Dresden.
So they kind of discuss Molly and if she's able to actually change her life or is she stuck like this forever,
Hmm.
based on the decisions she's made in the past. And we can kind of all guess who's on each side. However,
Yeah,
Lachelle reveals that she has plans for Molly in this conversation, which is confusing.
right.
Harry then asks her about the fact that he's become angry as a person, and he does blame her and he asks like, did you realize this was happening? She mentions that he's often more malleable in his sleep, so we can understand
Hmm.
that so that we can understand that she's trying to affect him during that time. Then he brings up the fact that she is a shadow of the actual Ashiel.
Yes.
And in being with him this long, he thinks he's also fundamentally changed this part because it's not the
Hmm.
actual being, it's just kind of a copy almost.
Right.
And so being with
Clone
him,
situation.
yes, like they have they have been changed for good, Laura.
I have been changed for
And
good.
just to clear the air, I ask forgiveness for the things I've done you blame me for. Honestly, I need
Actually,
someone.
Wicked was popular at this time, so could be.
Yeah, I do need someone to do a mashup of like two drawings of them singing to each other in the final section of this
That would
book.
be great.
Um,
Artists, I hope you're listening.
artists, you get on it.
I will say that during this section, there's like Lashiel and Harry are like debating about the effectiveness of anger.
Yes.
And I do kind of like the way that they talk about anger and how it's like, I think it's Lashiel. It's like actually anger is like an incredible driving force,
Mm-hmm.
that it's not always this negative thing.
Yes.
And then they kind of like are talking about, oh, well, I think it's awful to be angry or whatever. And she's like, well, a lot of people do like really good things when they are driven by anger that
Mm-hmm.
are like really positive things. And I was like, okay,
Yes.
that's really good to point out. And then when he's talking about her being like this completely different person that has changed since being separated for this from this coin, he
Yeah.
mentions how she actually has to like she may like actually have a choice in
Mm-hmm.
her life. Like she might
Yeah.
actually have some free will,
She
and
has
that
free
he
will
can like
now.
feel that she's just full of like deep loneliness.
Yes.
And I feel like that is like such a theme within this book, just like the pain and stuff, individual suffering that people are undergoing.
Well, because it's
And
all psychic attacks of loneliness and feeling isolated and feel
yes,
yes. And so I did feel for that part because it's also talking about like personhood almost, where like
yes,
this version of Lachelle would just be subsumed by the other person and like would
hmm,
cease to exist almost. And he can tell that like that gets to her where she does want to survive, like she is her own person in some way. And like it's just very sad during this
yes.
moment where they're talking. So
This was like probably one of the best parts of the whole section though for me,
yeah.
where I was like, I actually am really on board with Butcher's vibe here that he's going with
But I wish we'd
this.
had more time with it.
Oh, absolutely. I'm not
Like it's in the
like
final section and then all of a sudden it's gone.
right.
Whereas like that's wild. Like we've
Expand,
had
my
this
friend, expand.
we've had this character for so long. Like and it's just been the little like parrot on his shoulder giving him spells. Like
Yeah,
where was this? But
just a
Harry
brainworm.
but like they have this beautiful moment and then Harry's like, "Well, I have bigger fish to fry." And so Harry and Ramirez meet up to talk about vampires. Ramirez is going to help him,
And he's
at
incredibly
this.
inappropriate about Molly.
That's
Yeah.
what I said. Oh my gosh. I said they have the right to come speak at the White Court thing. They discuss vampires and their lore because Ramirez doesn't really know what's going on. And then I said, "Okay, I she is 18, he is 24. We understand it's legal, but there's 6 years between them
My thing
and
is, why does every character have to be making comments
so
about her?
gross about her." And it's like, I'm sorry, at 18 and 24, she just turned 18.
Yeah.
Like, she's barely legal, and she's an apprentice, and he's like a very
Hmm, hmm.
powerful warden. So it's just really icky on all
Yeah.
levels. Because I said Ramirez also makes some really, really fucking disgusting comments about the 18-year-old apprentice of Harry's.
Yes.
And then as they go to leave, Molly shows up. She says that she really needs to be a part of this fight. She understands that she may not be able to survive, but it's all real now because she saw the vampire die a couple chapters ago. And Harry goes, "That's all I needed to hear." What? What?
This was all a test and you passed. I needed
I
to know that you cared and you
I
understand
needed
the dangers and your own limitations. And do you realize now how power can corrupt, Molly? I hope so. Otherwise, I'm going to have to fuego a trash can in front of you again.
Well, and then she's like, "But what about the beats?" And he's like, "The beats don't matter." I'm like, "The beats don't matter. Like they
What
should.
the
It does
heck?
show like actual technical prowess. Like no, no, no."
Here's
Um,
my thing. When he's giving those kind of lessons, I'm just like, what even matters? None of it.
I said it was all about you having responsibility, quote unquote, which is really annoying. So then she gets to go to the fight, but she also doesn't get to go to the fight because she
Not
only
really.
gets
She
to
gets to
sit
sit in the car with
outside
the
in a
dog.
car. So like, I guess she's
She's there
there.
so people won't come over and be like, "Excuse me, I'm gonna throw a brick through your window because your dog's locked in here."
Yes. He does make sure that she has a whistle for Mouse if something like bad happens. And he's like,
Hmm.
"Whistle in this car." So they all drive to the White Quartz estate. Molly does cloak the car in invisibility, and she's really good at it. And Ramirez is impressed. Because by the end of this book, she's hanging out with Ramirez, and
Yeah,
they do be
just
probably in a relationship.
just puke.
Um, and so Harry and Ramirez go to the grounds. We see a little bit of Ramirez's power as he opens the gate. It's like a
Hmm.
little bit more technical than Harry's,
Yeah.
but Harry often reminds us in this section that he is more powerful than Ramirez. Like, yes,
He also has to
Ramirez is,
remind too that he's taller and takes bigger steps and
yes,
faster, stronger, blah 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 blah
he's
blah.
just no one
You know,
walks
just
like Dresden.
better.
Um, then a car immediately comes up. It has Laura's bodyguard in it. Harry demands to see Laura, and he says that she can come out and talk to him and give him the right of safety. But she actually is already in the car. She comes out and starts talking to him. She flirts with Harry and tries to seduce him into her ways, but he's just so powerful that he can withstand. He does refuse and threatens to burn her up. Then we find out that Ramirez is the worst thing you can possibly be, Laura. A virgin.
Here's the other thing. This is why I feel like Ramirez and Molly end up together because he has to be good enough for Molly. He must be a virgin.
It is wild. I don't care that he's a virgin. He can be a virgin. I hate
But the amount of times it's like joked about and like,
he's 24. There are people who don't have sex before they turn 24, and it's weird of them to pretend otherwise, especially in the early 2000s. Like, I don't understand why
right.
it was so put upon that, like, he's a virgin. He's never
Hmm.
had sex before. Like, who cares? I
It's the
don't.
greatest treat those vampires could ever have.
And so Laura tries to seduce him. He does a soul gaze with her
Can we
instantly, and
just say Laura? We need to be
Lara,
clear that
sorry.
we're saying Laura instead of Laura. I do not want to be associated with this book.
You don't want to try to seduce the 24
No,
year old virgin.
no.
Laura tries to seduce him and he does a soul gaze with her. And Harry's like, soul gazes go by really fast, which I do think is funny. Like
I
to
know.
watch it from the outside looking in and be like, that's over really quick. Like,
Also,
yeah.
it really just minimizes it a little bit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where it's like, if this
Where
was
you're sitting
so
there
important,
like,
why is it
doo
only like
doo
five
doo
seconds?
doo. Yeah. And it's just like, oh, it's just me glancing
It's
at
almost
someone
like
on
a
the
Jimmy
bus.
Neutron brain
Like,
blast where you like go into his brain. And then
yeah,
all
I
of a
think
sudden
that's.
everyone else is there like, what? What just happened?
And so then he notices how when Laura points out that Lara points out how other people would take Ramirez much faster based on him being a
Mhm.
virgin. Harry is just kind of like, okay, let's get moving. And
She's like, okay,
Harry,
I guess you're gonna be protected.
yeah, and Harry's like, oh, good, come on, virgin. Then he's like, you
And
played
he's
it.
also like, she's totally lying.
Yeah. Oh, yeah,
I
that was
have
the other
bragged
thing.
so many times about all the women that I've been with.
Ramirez is like, I've had sex so often. I have sex all the time. I'm having sex right now, actually. And Harry's like, come on, you big old virgin. So stupid.
This is exactly the type of thing that Dresden would just absolutely love, though, where he's just like, ha 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 ha, this man
Virgin.
lied.
Okay, so then Harry gets led to the deep, which he wasn't expecting the meeting to be at. This is a place where he was
Mhm.
attacked quite a few books ago, because this is the book where we are reminded of all the things that happened in the other books. Um, and this is
Well, they
where,
go along this like it's now like a lit path with a red carpet, and there's like all
yeah.
these things that are trapped, which is horrendous.
Well, and it's all, yes, it has like all these people, all these fairies,
Hmm.
and Harry realizes that Lara, and this is also where Lara took over her father.
Yeah,
He and Ramirez have to hide in the air, in the like in an area off to the side, and
right.
Justine is the one who comes and gets them. She's fully ambulatory, which Harry is shocked by, and she
Well, she
says
looks
that
awesome.
she's been getting medicine or something like that. She says that they'll have to listen from a specific area, and Harry will know when to enter. But also, they're speaking an ancient language that Harry doesn't understand. And Harry's like, "I'm good. We're good."
I have
Um,
a fallen angel that can help me translate.
that's almost exactly what I put in my notes.
Hmm.
And they end up going to listen in. Harry hears them talking about how it's time to remove it's time to remove the truce and to take charge
Hmm.
against the wizards. They
When they're
say
weak.
yes, it's a great time to strike while the iron is hot. During the discussion, they like we do find out that the Scavis is like, my son was murdered because it
Hmm.
was my son. And this is where I was like, so Scavis is a person, but Scavis is also a group of vampires?
So it's like their family last name.
Yeah,
Previously it was the one Scavis family member. Now it's the Scavis family.
I know, but it's just like, well, what was his name? Scavis Scavis? Because we don't
We only had the last name.
Yeah, it's so wild. But we find out that it was the son. And he was like, he took out all these witches for everyone. And then Madrigal's mother is there because, of course, he's a mommy's boy. And
Yes.
she comes in and she's like, it was actually my son and Vito who did all of it, not the Scavis. Even though the Scavis was involved, I'm a little confused how this all works.
I don't understand why the Scavis is so quick to back out, but
Yeah,
whatever.
because like his
They do.
son did in fact murder people.
Yes.
So what's happening? But she was like, "We did it so we could all thrive. We broke
Hmm.
it. We did it to kill all the wizards." And then Lara's father, who's actually Lara, says he's like, "Hey, that's treason what you did. Like I
Right.
told you not to make a move and then you made a move." And the Lady Magical states that it is not treason to go after what they need to go after in the name of, furthering themselves. And then
Right.
Harry comes in and accuses Grey Cloak, aka Vito
Veto.
Malvora, who is and Magical Wraith. He's like, "Hey, I'm calling you guys out as murderers, and you killed witches who are part of my magical community during a truce, and so I demand a trial of death."
And I
And
will fight on behalf of them.
Mrs. Magical immediately freaks out and it's like, "My son is too weak for
I
this."
mean, they kind of all freak out. It's kind of
Yeah,
like everyone's all in an uproar at this
except
point.
for Vito, who's just on board.
He's a mean, and which, why wasn't this a red flag from the beginning?
Yeah, I
Who
know.
knows?
Well, and he's like, "What are you afraid of, Magical? Like, we did it. We did murder all these people." And Lady Magical is like, "No, we're protected." And Harry's like, "You just admitted that you murdered people in my community. So, like, you're not actually protected? That's ridiculous." And Harry or Wraith points out that the mother also literally just bragged about it. And so
Mhm.
they're going to let it go through. It's not really an
Yeah. I
argument.
mean,
So Madrigal and Vito go to get their weapons. In the interim, Lara comes out to talk to Harry. They kind of have a powwow. Uh, and Ramirez is freaking out that they're just going to be murdered outright or that Mommy Madrigal will take out Wraith. Harry
well, because it's
explains.
all like kind of like creepy because they're like the vampires are like splitting up onto different sides, like Scavis and Malvora, and then the other side is the Wraiths. And like Harry and Ramirez are like, they're like, okay, what's our game plan? And Ramirez is like, we're dead because the whole thing's a setup. And he's like, well, let's see how long we have.
Well, and as Ramirez is freaking out, Lara's kind of like, "Hey, it's offensive what you're saying about my clan." And he's like, "Why?" And Harry's like, "Well, the clan is much more into like politics and subterfuge. So like they
Hmm.
can't openly go against anyone. They have to play out these things."
Hmm.
And it's not really their style to just break rank and do this. Like they all
Right.
had a plan when they did this. It's just kind of falling to shit because Lara got Harry involved. And so then Ramirez is like, "Dude, you speak multiple languages that you shouldn't be able to speak, and you barely speak Latin. You're in cahoots with the vampires." And Harry's like, why are you questioning
He's like,
me?"
why are you lying all the time?
And and then of course they come out for a fight, and Ramirez is like, "I'm prepared to die because I think you're in it to kill me." Everyone starts to get ready for the fight. They have humans around the arena, which Harry realizes like they're doing on purpose because Harry can't
Hmm.
use his gunslinger moves because
Yep.
he's a big old fireball.
It's
And
kind
he
of like a
does,
shield, basically.
yeah. So they start to fight. It's important for me to note that during this fight, everyone gets to use any magic they have available to them.
Yes.
So they all are packed to the gills with magical elements. Like, and it's very hard to get past people, which is just really random.
It's
And it,
also interesting too because like Ramirez's skill is like breaking down spells, so there's like all of these things happening magically, and like his skill is actually like kind of like fizzling things out.
yes. Well, and like, I do think it's weird that we have all this build up to like, I challenge you in the name of the Sealy Court. But also, there are no rules when we get into the arena.
Because I mean they have guns and
Yeah.
they like they've got spears and javelins and then they're using tons of magic, so it's all over the place.
Yeah. And Harry points out that like Vito is very fast. He goes to shoot Harry with a gun immediately, but Ramirez is able to deflect it. There's a whole lot of fighting and a whole lot of
Knife
setting things on
throwing,
fire. Ramirez is able to block things, Harry comparing their powers and saying how strong he is compared to Ramirez. Um,
obviously.
But they're contending against Magical and Vito, who are both vampires, so it's kind of
Hmm.
hard. And then we find out that Madrigal is obviously wearing a reinforced cuff, which they're shocked by that he would think to do what Harry is also
I was
doing
gonna
with
say,
his
I don't know
ring.
why they're shocked by this.
Um, and so he is fighting hard with that. It says I also like he just seems a little shady because it's like, well, he was so scared, but then he has all these powers.
Hmm.
I don't know. As they keep fighting, it's very touch and go. However, they are able to get the upper hand over Madrigal, and he is killed.
And at
Um,
this point, I do think it's interesting that Butcher points out that, like, again, he points out, like, death is very interesting to them. And the whole thing has become like a
yes,
weird spectacle that they're all just like fascinated watching this because even though they are like immortal beings, like death can still reach them.
well, he
So
says it's
they
like
are
almost
like very much
titillating to
into
them
it.
because like it says I put in my notes like they're getting off on it. He points out that
Hmm.
they often aren't in danger as the White Court, but because that's just the reality of who they are. But they are all on the edge of their seat because they like finally see what's going on, and it kind
Right.
of makes it all real. And then at this point, Vito is like, "You can't kill me. I have my master," and ghouls just jump in.
Yeah.
Now that there are
We should have
ghouls,
known that ghouls were going to be back, honestly. I don't
they
know
were
why we didn't
everywhere.
expect this, or at least I didn't expect more ghouls again.
Yeah, and so now there are all these ghouls. It's all hands on deck. People start trying to kill the ghouls. There's about
Mhm.
12 to 13 of them. And
It's
then
just like mass chaos.
Thomas arrives with a sword that Harry can't remember the name of until he does. And he has brought Marconi and Murphy. And Harry's like, it
Hmm.
took you long enough. And he points out that Thomas points out that Laura told him that Justine was in trouble and he needed his help or she would be in more danger. Magical's mom is able to kill one of the ghouls during this time. Murphy and Marconi and his men also descend, bringing Hendrix along because he has to be there. And he had given Murphy a gun that's like, we'll always
Hmm.
have Hawaii, which is, gross. They are helping
I love that
fight.
this has to constantly be mentioned. Like, poor Murphy, she can't escape this
It's like Ramirez can't escape the fact that he's never fucked anyone. Murphy can't escape the fact that she has had sex one time with a man.
with someone that was not Harry Dresden.
I know. And they're helping fight and came through the Never Never. They're battling the ghouls, and Marconi says it's time to go. Harry realizes that Thomas won't leave Justine, like he's over by him. And if Wraith and Laura don't survive, they're doomed. So he says that they need to go to war. Marconi's like, we agreed to an extraction effort. And Harry's like, well, war is what we have. So you either
Right.
help or I die, or you die. And so then Harry sends people with Ramirez to protect the gate to make sure like no one can get in and they can get out.
Hmm.
And Marconi follows Harry to get Wraith. Then Harry realizes that there's like this black ooze coming from the ghouls and they're reforming in a way, so they're in big trouble. So the attack keeps going. They're all fighting through the swarm. Harry tells Laura and Rafe that he's going to get them out. Laura obviously mind controls Rafe to say, like, okay, we'll leave with you. And Harry does insist that they bring all the humans with them because he is a good guy. But Laura then ends up using them as a human shield because she's
Basically, yeah.
evil.
Hmm.
And so they start moving towards the door. Harry's able to use hellfire and energy to light up something. He like lights up the floor to keep the ghouls out.
Yeah.
But then he's at the dregs of his magic. Ramirez steps in and he makes like a green floaty thing in the ground because Ramirez is green and Harry is red.
One is Spider-Man and one is Hulk.
But it should be the reverse because Harry's always angry.
He's not
Um,
Hulk for
and
long.
Ramirez is a virgin.
Spider-Man.
And
And
he's a
young.
teenager.
And young.
Yeah. Um and and likes a woman with an M name. MJ, Molly. Oh,
Um,
it's all coming together. Except he's green, so figure that one out. Then Ramirez is stabbed at one point. He's realized that he was also stabbed in the ankle during the arena and just failed to notice. And then Harry and Marconi have a moment where Marconi's like, I'm not leaving you dead. And as they're about to get to the door, along with everyone else, Harry is hit with a psychic attack from Vito, and
because
he
he's like,
feels.
I'm causing all of my friends' deaths.
And Harry falls to the ground because he was at the dregs of his magic, and he is all used up.
Hmm.
But then Lachelle shows up, And she starts talking to Harry and she tries to get him to call the coin, saying, like, it will help you. You just have to think about it and then it
She's
comes
like,
to
I have a
you.
really strong sense of self-preservation and I'm trying to protect both of us. And he's like, I don't care about the coin. I will never.
I do I will never do this. I would rather die than meet your actual maker. And he is like, but you can make a choice. And she like cries to him that she just doesn't want to die. Harry says that it's really up to her. And she's kind of like, look,
Mhm.
I'm slowing down time. I'm talking to you like this. You are about to take extreme psychic damage to your brain. Like it's not going to be good for you.
Right.
But he's like, I will never take it. And then she says, she doesn't deserve you. And she ends up helping him. She tells him that Harry's special because, of course, he is.
Well,
His.
because there's like these outsiders that Vito is possessed by. And
Mhm.
she's like, you were born special. Your birth was unique. How did you think your mom got away from the vampires? And he's like, what? I only defeated outsiders when I was 16. Did that matter? And we're like, oh, yeah, helpful context. Okay,
I was
good.
like, well, and I think it's supposed to be like Justin was an outsider. And she was like, you defeated him when you were just 16. Like, that's
Hmm.
huge. You can't just ignore that. And so Harry's like, okay, I had the ability to fight all along.
It was in me all this time.
And then he feels like this huge energy and he gets up. And Marconi is up and attacking Vito. He takes off Vito's hand, and Vito is unable to kill Lara and Thomas. Uh, well, Vito is just sitting there like, I'm gonna kill you, and then I'm gonna
Hmm.
kill you. And then
The
they take
fatal
off his
flaw that
hand.
all
And
have of
Harry's
talking
like,
too much.
look, either I'm killing you because we're all going up in flames because like Marconi set a bomb, or you let my friends go and you have an opportunity to live.
Hmm.
And Vito is like, I have self-preservation, so head on out that gate. And so as they leave, Cowl appears because of course he does. And Harry is like built this gate to the Never Never. They're all running through, and there's 18 seconds before everything explodes. 18 seconds, and then so much time passes before any explosion occurs. But anyway, Harry and Lara are the last
They
ones to
missed the
go
gate.
jumped through the Never Never gate, and they miss it. And so Harry's like, okay, Cowell's looking at me. He's gonna die. Lara's like, we're all gonna die. And then Harry goes, I have an idea.
Let's
Lara,
kiss.
kiss me. And they kiss, and it is sexual.
My note says, we learned that lust is the most powerful magic of
Weapon of
all.
all. And Harry uses that lust to fuel his power, which is just so gross. And
It's
he,
literally just a single kiss, and he's
yeah,
just like so into it in the creepiest way.
and then he uses it to protect them as the explosives go off. And there's just so much innuendo in this
Yeah,
conversation.
it makes me think like, is this what men think they're doing when they feel all this lust that they're like, not only am I a sexual being, but I will protect you. And I'm like, okay, please
And then,
stop.
of course, they keep kissing, and he's like, you gotta stop, you gotta stop. And then Laura has a moment where she admits to the reader that he's still protected by Susan's love. And she's like, after all this time? And she's like, and you also haven't
For
had
four
sex
years.
in 4 years? And it's like,
And
and
she's
he
like,
kept,
not even with Murphy? I saw there was something between the two of you. I would have thought by now. And he's like, she doesn't want to have anything to do with me.
what a weird conversation, because then immediately Harry's like, so you set up everyone, right? Like you set up the whole murdering witches, right? That's exactly what happened because you
Hmm.
wanted a way to take out your enemies. You wanted a way for them to all fight against each other so they weren't fighting against Wraith, and so that you could keep this power. And she's like, tee, I can't wait for all the wizards to die. And Harry's like,
You
look,
caught me.
if you don't release all the fairies because you're also doing that for a power, I'm going to let everyone know what happened. I'm going to let them
Hmm.
know that you violated the accords, and it's just going to be a mess, and it's not going to be helpful for you or for me. And if you go
And I
after my.
want some Listerine.
Yes, and you, if you don't help me, I will reveal all your secrets, and you are going to give reparations to the dead people's families. And she's like, okay, and you will get me Listerine to wash you out of my mouth. And she says, okay. And then he goes and he sees Molly and he collapses into sleep.
Hmm.
He wakes up like 6 hours later. He and Molly powwow about, like, oh, I just sat in the car and did nothing. And then all this stuff started exploding. And also, I
I'm
have
like,
to call Murphy.
Molly has been useless in this
I know.
novel.
well, she learned that the secret was knowing your limits all along. And then Murph comes up. Molly like takes Harry's car keys away, and they all know she's gonna go visit Ramirez. And so Harry and Murph just kind of talk about everything that's going
Yeah, they hash it
on.
out again because we have to have a
Yeah.
million hash outs where he's just like meeting all the different characters because then he talks to Elaine and
Hmm.
she's like, I'm
Well,
going
and
back to Cali because I hate it here.
Murph isn't that important other than like
No.
we find out that I think this is where we find out. No, that's not where we find it out. There's nothing. He goes and he talks to Elaine. She's going back to
Hmm.
California. He said he got reparations for the families and that they're going to use Anna's portions to create the secret network of mid-level witches and wizards
Right.
who can help each other out when something goes wrong, and Elaine can be there to help. Then he talks to Ramirez, and
Well, because he is
Ramirez
right there when Ramirez wakes up. He's like, I'm
and
so glad I could be here for him because we're such good friends. I'm like, what happened to Billy, your best friend?
he's my best friend. But Ramirez is like, Harry, you don't trust me. It's a problem. Like
Hmm.
I'm here for you. I stood up in battle for you. I am your Spider-Man, and you just won't trust me. And Harry's like, I'm working on it.
He's
And
like,
they
I know
both
about some really dark things. And
and and
Ramirez is
he's like,
like the Black Council.
yeah. Well, he's like, I call them the Black Hats. What do you call them? And Harry's like, the Black Council. And he's like, well, yours is better. I'm like, of course it is, because Harry's has to be
I
better.
mean, Black Hats isn't that bad.
I know. And they talk about how like Harry's trying to use the vampires to like root that person out,
Hmm.
whoever they may be. And Harry's like, well, you don't leave an injured friend all alone because he's my friend now. And then Harry goes to Marconi the next day. We find out that he's with uh Helen.
Yeah.
They're together now, even though he was with the man who shot her daughter. What
I am so confused by all that.
I just, there's just such a trope of like the man who was tangentially involved with my daughter's shooting is
Hmm.
the only man I can date. What? That's not a
I
thing. You could choose someone else. Choose
I
someone
can't
else.
believe that's
It's
the only
fine.
option. You know what
It's
I mean?
not the only option. It's insane. So anyway, and then Harry has a moment where he's like, "You're the one who gave her Helen Demeter, right? Where's Persephone?" And we find out that like the little girl that Marconi has been visiting is Helen's daughter in a coma, but
Yeah.
he can't tell her that her daughter is
Is
alive because
actually alive. He's just letting her.
quote unquote she just couldn't take it. That's the reason.
Well, because he wants to rename. So he's got like all this paperwork, right, to
Hmm.
rename Helen Demeter.
Yes.
And then he's like, what about Persephone? And then he does a little like Greek mythology deep dive
Yeah.
and then reveals that that's not actually his daughter. It's
Yeah. It's
Helen's. And
Helen's child.
I'm like, this is incredibly complicated.
And now Marconi has a bunch of people signing off on him becoming part of the Sealy Court, which never happens with humans. But it's so he can expand his power because if he becomes part of the Sealy Court, like Red Court can't come in and have brothels anymore because then, or like kill his people because then they would be encroaching on someone's territory in the
Hmm.
Sealy Court.
Well, and then Dresden again has this moment where he's like, I never saw this side of him, and I really respect him because he cares about innocent people. I'm like,
He always
what?
respected him. It's a lie. And so and like he actually murdered the guy who did shoot Helen's daughter, so
Hmm.
he's good now, question mark. I don't know. Marconi is a weird character to me. We can
I
talk about it
know.
next week because he's the most beige villainous person, quote unquote, ever. Like
That
there's no
you just
teeth
get
to
a
him.
huge dump of all this stuff that he's done, but then we never get like anything
Anything that
useful.
shows badness in real time. So then Harry's talking to Bob, and we realize that Lasheel is no longer in Harry's head.
And the mark is gone.
And the mark is gone because, and Bob is like, well, you did suffer brain damage, but they're all the places that she was. So as she was saving Harry, she killed herself.
Hmm.
And he's like, well, maybe she's out there somewhere. Free will is a crazy thing. And then Harry follows Thomas because this book won't end.
Could have ended right there.
Well, and still gets to play the guitar. He still
Oh yeah,
maintains
that's
his
right. He
guitar
plays the
powers.
guitar and he cries because he's like, I hear a voice
Lucille's
in my
gone.
head, a whisper telling me that
Well,
I'm so good at guitar.
well, and he like gave her a nickname, and Bob's like, "Well, you named her." I'm like, he called her Lash. That's on your
Right.
eyeball.
Not
It's not that big of a deal. But then Harry has to follow Thomas because he wants to figure out where he's feeding. And we find out that Thomas is a European hairstylist.
that Thomas and Charles Boyle have the same motto because they think that washing someone's hair is the most sensual thing that you can do.
Maybe Charles Boyle was a huge Dresden head.
I think he might
Um,
have been.
because as he washes people's hair, it's a level of trust and
Mhm.
sensuality that goes
Super
into
intimate.
massaging a woman's head. And he gets to just take tiny sips and sips and sips and sips from people all day. And it feeds him right up. And Harry's like, why didn't you tell me? And Thomas is like, because styling hair isn't gay, Harry. And it's
Right.
like, okay, so you also had toxic masculinity roped into all of this. But Harry's like, well, you son of a gun, you figured it out. And that's the end of the plot episodes of Dresden Files.
Thank God.
So that ending took forever. It was five
It seemed
million
like this would
endings.
never end.
I didn't like
There
it,
were so many
but
times where you were just like kind of even discussing this and we're like, we could have cut it off right here. Nope.
yeah,
Let's go on a little more. We could have cut it off right here. Nope. Go on a
you
little
and I have
more.
been talking forever. These were such long chapters. There's so
They
much in
really
here.
were. This
All
last
right.
section in particular was really long.
Well, anyway, join us next week
Well, anyway.
as we discuss the plot or as we discuss the characters and themes of this book. I'm sure we'll
Sure
have
to
a
be a
lot to
doozy.
say as we close out our summer of the Dresden, if you
Mhm.
will. As the leaves turn, so do we to a different series.
Honestly, like good timing because we're gonna be, I mean, fall started, so yeah, we're
Yeah,
timing this perfectly.
we're timing this perfectly. Summer is coming to an end, and
Hmm.
we will be going into Indie Mission, followed by inspecting the Dublin Murder Squad.
Yeah, we're
So,
investigating the Dublin Murder Squad. But
investigating, yes.
first, we
So,
are reading Revenge Arc by Kat Velour for
yeah.
our indie mission.
Yes. So, very exciting. Make sure you're keeping an eye out for our giveaway for that. And make sure that you are following along on our TikTok, on our Instagram, and on our Blue Sky. Those are the places we are
Yes.
most active. Or come join us on Discord to chit chat over
Mhm.
there. We'd love to hear from you
I was
there.
trying to start a discussion on Taskmaster there. Nobody bit. So,
So on TikTok for more
Taskmaster
about
fans, go
Taskmaster,
there.
OWWR Pod. And you can also check out our website at ourpod.com, or if you would so choose, tell a friend to listen to us, or rate, review, and subscribe. Rating, reviewing, and subscribing is a great way to get involved in this wonderful conversation that we call
Yeah.
Dresden.
And sharing really helps. We really appreciate it.
Yeah. And of course, as Laura always says, thank you for listening today. So we appreciate you sitting along with us as we complain about this book.
It's
So
almost over.
it's almost over, guys. We're almost through. But I'm bump. The Earth, the Dresden. Bye.
Bye.